Once upon a time, in a land not too far away, there was a library, and in that library sat a book, a very special book with a very special story. It all began one day when a little girl named Lily came to the library to borrow a book. Now, Lily loved stories, but she'd already read all her favorites so many times. She wanted something new, something exciting, something different from anything she'd ever read before. As she looked round, her eye caught a book whose cover seemed to be shimmering like a rainbow. It was unlike any other book in the library, and it seemed to be calling out to her. Curiosity sparked. She pulled the book from its shelf and opened it. But then the most peculiar thing happened. The book began to talk. "Oh, for goodness sakes," it exclaimed. "Not again. Not another child wanting to read my story. You humans are all alike. You pick up a book, you open it, and then you start asking questions. Questions like, why is the sky green? Why do birds wear hats? Why does the princess have purple hair? Oh, and the worst one, why does the dragon have a tail?" It's a book, not an encyclopedia. You can't just go around reading it and asking questions. Lily, of course, was taken aback. She'd never had a talking book interrupt her story before. But being a brave and inquisitive girl, she wasn't going to let a grumpy book ruin her fun. "Hey," she retorted, "it's not my fault you haven't been read in ages. If someone actually took the time to sit down and enjoy your story, you might get less bored. So how about I read your story and you can tell me if I missed anything?" The book was flabbergasted. No one had ever dared to question him before. Usually, children would apologize profusely and promise to never ask such silly questions again. But this one was suggesting that a book filled with wisdom and adventure, was boring. "You want to test me?" The book huffed. "Very well. Let's see if you can handle my story. Just don't come crying to me when you can't understand it." With that, the book settled down and with a deep voice began telling his tale. Many years ago, he started, in a kingdom far, far away lived a brave knight named Sir Reginald the Bold. Sir Reginald was known throughout the land for his bravery, his honor, and his slightly unfortunate habit of losing his helmet. Now, while the book was quite dramatic, Lily was finding the story rather predictable. So she decided to spice things up a bit. "Hold on," she interrupted. "Let's pretend that Sir Reginald is a squirrel, and instead of a kingdom, he lives in a tree." The book spluttered, clearly not expecting this change of pace. "A squirrel? What nonsense are you talking about? This is a tale of bravery and adventure, not some silly woodland fantasy." "Oh, come on," Lily coaxed. "Just go along with it. It'll make the story more fun." The book hesitated, then sighed dramatically. "Very well, but don't blame me if this tale becomes too ridiculous for you to handle." So Lily continued, pretending that Sir Reginald was now a bushy-tailed squirrel named Reggie. And much to the book's chagrin, she began making up all sorts of ridiculous situations for him to find himself in. There were battles with garden snakes, daring chases up and down bird feeders, and even a near-tragic encounter with an open window. Through it all, Lily kept a straight face, fully committed to her new vision of the story. Meanwhile, the book was struggling to keep up. Every time Lily changed something, he had to scramble to come up with a new way to continue the tale. At first, it was quite funny, but as Lily kept adding more and more ridiculous situations, The book began to panic. Finally, after what felt like hours of non-stop silliness, Lily paused to catch her breath. Okay, she said with a big smile. I think we should end the story here. What do you think, book? But instead of relief, the book let out a frustrated groan. Oh, dear heavens, he muttered. I need a break from this madness. Perhaps if I close my eyes, she'll stop reading. However, Lily wasn't done yet. She still had one more idea up her sleeve. As she reached out to close the book, she saw the reflection of her own face staring back at her from the pages. An idea struck her like lightning. Wait a minute, she exclaimed. You're not just a book. You're an adventure waiting to happen. A magical journey that anyone can take if they dare. With every page, I'm not just reading your story, I'm living it. So how about we make me part of your story? The book, exhausted and desperate to put an end to this crazy adventure, didn't even bother arguing. Do whatever you want, he said with a defeated sigh. Just please be quick. My spine is aching from all this excitement. So Lily, with a mischievous grin, opened the book once again and began writing her own story directly onto the pages. She drew pictures of herself exploring fantastical lands, meeting quirky characters, and going on daring adventures. And as she wrote, the book watched in amazement. He couldn't believe that this silly story was becoming a reality, but he had to admit it was kind of fun too. After a while, Lily finished her story and closed the book. Well, she said with a satisfied smile, that was an exciting adventure. Thank you, book, for coming along with me. The book, feeling a bit better now that the madness was over, gave a weak smile. You're welcome, Lily. Perhaps I was wrong. Maybe a little imagination is what a good story needs. And from that day on, Lily and the book became the best of friends. They spent hours together, creating new stories and going on imaginary adventures. And whenever they got bored of the book's old tales, Lily would simply add her own twist to them. Turning Sir Reginald the Bald into Reggie the Squirrel, or having the princess wear mismatched shoes, or the dragon eat ice cream. The book, though he sometimes complained, secretly loved it. He loved the laughter, the joy, the creativity that Lily brought to his world. He realized that a good story isn't just about the words on the page. It's about the imagination it sparks in those who hear or read it. It's about the endless possibilities that come to life in the mind of a child. And so their adventures continued, filled with laughter, silliness, and most importantly, friendship, reminding us all that the greatest adventures are the ones we create in our own minds. Once upon a time, in a cozy little town nestled between rolling hills and a sparkling lake, there lived a girl named Lily who loved nothing more than stories. She would spend hours upon hours in her room, daydreaming and creating imaginary worlds filled with talking animals, magical creatures, and daring adventures. One day, while rummaging through the attic, she stumbled upon an old trunk filled with her grandmother's belongings. As she opened it, an old leather-bound book caught her eye. Curiosity sparked. She pulled the book from the trunk and blew off the dust. As she began to read, she realized that the book contained her grandmother's handwritten stories, tales filled with wonder and magic that she'd written during her own childhood. Among these stories was one that stood out, a tale of a young girl who discovered a magical book that could bring stories to life. Intrigued, Lily decided to rewrite the story with her own characters and adventures. She spent weeks pouring her imagination onto paper, creating a world where talking books were real and where stories weren't just words on a page, but portals to other realms. When she finally finished, she named it the book that told its own story. And as she wrote the last sentence, something extraordinary happened. The book began to glow, and when the light faded, the words on the page seemed to dance and shimmer as if they had a life of their own. And then the most incredible thing happened. The book began to move. It stretched and yawned, then looked at Lily with big, curious eyes. "Did I just come to life?" it asked in a tiny voice. And so began the most magical adventure of Lily's life. Together with a talking book, she went on daring quests, met fantastical creatures, and explored worlds beyond her wildest dreams. And every night before bed, she would write a new chapter in their shared story, keeping their adventures forever in their book, reminding us that the greatest adventures are the ones we create and the most magical stories are the ones we share.